1077 The Bronx, 1077thebronx.com, nominated for 8 Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Media Awards, including Best On-Air Pledge Drive for our first ever radiothon and best college radio station in the nation. Keep it tuned to The Bronx to find out if our team of student broadcasters brings home the gold on Saturday, February 21st. This is the Tom Hill Show here on a Monday morning, and our first Monday without football, so bit of an interesting kind of way that we're going to be kind of shifting this show. And I think the thing that is kind of a bit of an interesting tidbit is that, you know, we don't typically get the Olympics. You know, last year was 4 nations and this year it's the Olympics. But I do think that having it now is the best time to have it because we need something. I think all sports fans kind of need something to kind of at least get their feet wet, for lack of a better term. I think that's the best way to put it, because at the end of the day, there hasn't been much on in terms of NBA, because the NBA All-Star Game has kind of shifted towards, I don't want to say it's completely dead, because I'm sure that, you know, Adam Silver and company will find a way to work it and make it a little bit better. But I think at the end of the day, the thing we have to realize and the thing we have to address is that, you know, everybody is filling up the timeline with, well, you know, the dunk contest isn't what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And again, the thing you got to realize is everything has been tried. Everything has been optimized to 100%. And gone are the days where anything could work. Gone are the days where anything could, you know, now be tried again. It's just when you reach a point where you're at an apex with something, doesn't matter what it is, it's not going to look as good. It's not going to look as good. And it doesn't benefit stars from trying to do it because they don't have to. They don't need the press. They don't need the money. I believe there is a financial incentive to winning, but I think gone are the days where players and star players are really approaching this as an opportunity to showcase themselves. I think they look at this as just a time to relax. I mean, the All-Star Game is kind of a joke. I personally think All-Star Games should, I don't want to say abolish them, but I don't know if I prefer them. I understand players need a time to relax, but All-Star Games really just don't really do a lot. I think they're more for kids and they're more for the companies to use as an opportunity to just kind of make more money. But I think the more important topic here today, it is the Olympics, because we are on a collision course for the U.S. against Canada. I think that's pretty logical right now. I think when you take a look at the way that they play hockey, and you know, we can have this debate of, you know, should it be amateur? Should it? I mean, it would help in terms of making it fair, but I don't know if it's necessarily showcasing the best talent that this country has in hockey, that Canada has in hockey. And, you know, you take a look at these different countries and they can't compete. Like, they can't, like, it's going to be so tough for a country like France to compete with Canada, which is why Canada put 10 on them. I mean, when you get, that's their sport. And America has also, I would say, done a good enough job at least matching them. And obviously last year's 4 nations, that final game went down to the wire and it was tight. A lot of these games are tight. And I think the thing that we have to realize is that this sport is dominated by your ability to not just skate, but skate and play physically. And if you're able to do both, which these countries are, you're going to win. I mean, we're in a collision course for what looks to be, and in terms of an entertainment standpoint, what is going to be another entertaining game. In all likelihood, it should be close. It should be fun. So kind of my segue and kind of why I brought this up, because there was going to be a point that I was going to eventually allude to. You know, does the NBA try to figure something out in terms of getting something to work? I don't know, but it seems like a lot of NBA players and Adam Silver and everyone involved with the league just seem to be at a point where they look at their break as just a break. And they want to try to include, USA versus World, and as pretty much any game that they can possibly get, they try to include it, but it just doesn't really hit the same as it used to. It doesn't hit the same as some of these other leagues. And you take a look at kind of what has happened with the Stars and the Stripes, and I don't know. I just, maybe that's just a personal decision. Maybe it's just the way I kind of approach the league, but it's hard because you want to try to implement a system where you want these guys to care, but at the end of the day, if it's an exhibition, they're not going to care at a rate that hockey players do, or at a rate that some of the other sports maybe do, because you have to look at it and think basketball has been doing everything in their power to try to limit the amount of time that we have seen them on the court, to try to limit the amount of wear and tear on the knees and on the legs. And we've seen a lot of people go back and forth, and we've seen it on shows or certain think pieces where it's like, hey, do we really need 82 games? Do we really need 72 games? Do we really need 70 plus games? Do we want the league to maybe go down to 60 or 66 or 62? And I know you want to try to maximize your value for your players, because your players are assets, because it's a business. But, at the end of the day, if you see a league where players are taking off, you see a lot of load management, how much are fans going to care if it seems like players don't care? And I think that has been the overarching theme with the NBA over the past 10 years. And a lot of people, pinpoint LeBron as the individual that kind of started this. And I don't think any individual started this. I don't think it's fair to really point towards him or Kawhi Leonard. And obviously Kawhi Leonard had success with it in 2019 with the Raptors, and that kind of spearheaded it. Before that, it was, all right, we're going to give him a day, or we're going to give him a couple of days. But it was never something that was done by multiple teams. Now it is. And now it's been happening for the last half decade, maybe longer. And I think there are benefits to it, because you want your players to be healthy, and you want your players to put together the best season that they can and maximize their health. I mean, last year's NBA Finals, that Game 7 could have gone a different way if Halliburton stayed healthy, and he did not. The Achilles gave out, but had he stayed healthy, he was hot early from the field, maybe we were looking at a different result. Indiana pushed that to 7 in a series that a lot of people thought they were going to lose in a sweep or in 5, but they were a tough team, and that series could have gone differently. That game could have gone differently. I definitely had an opportunity to, because it's not like the Thunder killed them in Game 7. So I think that is the biggest issue right now with the NBA, is they're trying to figure out how to move forward with what players want, because this isn't the 90s or the early 2000s. I think a lot of people need to get that out of their head. This is not the way it was, like in terms of just sheer ground coverage in today's NBA, and the fact that you have to pick up bigs from the top of the key, and you have to pick up guards from the top of the key, and just dropping back and then moving towards the corner. There's so much spacing that you're going to have to run a lot and cut a lot. And there are a lot of bigger bodies, 6'8", 6'9 plus, that are now shooting and now operating like guards, because the league has gotten a bit homogenized, I think, for a lack of a better term, because we see guys who are above 6'4" with guard-like skills. I think that's what the NBA now requires. So we've seen guys who are taller and bigger now have to play like guards. And I think gone are the days where you can be like an undersized, tough center or an undersized, tough power forward. Like, I look at the Quincy AC archetype. That doesn't really exist that much nowadays in the NBA, because there's just no market for it. So the skill has taken over, and a lot of that is because of the European players and the foreign players, because they come over and they're skilled because they practice a lot. But I think with that, you create, or not, you don't create, but what gets created as a byproduct, how are you going to go about a league where these guys are running a lot more? These guys are having tougher defensive assignments. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, they're moving violently, they're cutting. So how do you approach that as a league? Do you cut down on games? Because that's an easy fix. The easy fix is, yeah, we'll just move down to 66 games or 68 games or 72, however many. But the thing you have to realize is everything is about profit. It's the NBA. It's a business. So will owners want to lose 10 games, which is 5 home games? Will they want to lose 16 games, which is 8 home games? Will they lose 20 games, which is 10 home games? So everything stacks up. So that's not necessarily as easy. It's a very easy thing to just say, oh, well, I think that the NBA should trim down to no more than 64 games. Okay, sure. But the problem is the owners aren't going to want that because they're going to want their money from tickets. They're going to want their money from the TV deals, their regional TV networks. If the games are on national television, they're going to want that as well. So there's a lot that factors in. And then I think another take that, a lot of people have, but I don't think a lot of people really think about, is the fact that players are still going to get hurt. Like, I'd be curious to see what the biggest reason for the uptick in injury is. My assumption based on data and based on the way the league is moving is that it has a lot to do with just the fact that they're bigger and they're running more. And how do you combat that? You just play less basketball. So what they've tried to do is cut out back-to-backs. But I think the problem with that, though, is that these guys are still going to get hurt. If you're playing 35 minutes a night, 38 minutes a night, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to try to keep that up when you get into April and May and you need your legs under you. And that's why a lot of times what we see in the NBA is that it's not always. Sometimes it is. In the case of last year, I thought the Thunder were the best team in the league. But there are some years where the best team doesn't win. It's usually the team that maybe catches the break because they don't have a player leave due to injury. I mean, the Knicks were good last year. Were they better than Boston? I don't really think so. I thought Boston was a much better team. I thought they had more depth. I thought they had more talent. And they had leads in both games 1 and 2 at home and couldn't execute. And then when Jason Tatum got hurt, after they smoked the Knicks in New York in Game 3, they could not hold on to the lead in Game 4, lost, and then eventually lost the series in 6. But were the Celtics a worse team than the Knicks? I don't really necessarily think that's the case. I just think that sometimes in these series, and sometimes you see it a lot, in the NBA late, we saw it in 2019 with the Warriors. All of them fell apart. It's going to happen. When you play this much basketball and you do that much running for 32 to 38 minutes a night, it's going to stack up. It's going to stack up. Your legs can't handle that. Your feet can't handle that. The ligaments are just not built for that much constant running and then having to do it 2 nights later, 3 nights later. And over the course of an 82-game season, that's why we're going to see players sit out, because you're just not setting yourself up for success if you try to play 82 games. So we see guys play 70 or 75 or 71 because they need to sit sometimes. They need to sit, and it's not great from a fan perspective because I'm sure a young kid who's in an Anthony Edwards jersey maybe wants to see him play. But I just think that's where we're at in the state of the NBA right now, because we've seen it. We've seen it bear out over the last 6 or so years where it's not always the team that is the best equipped or the best shooting team or has the most depth or has the most talent. I mean, usually if you have depth, you're going to set yourself up a lot better than if you're top heavy, because then you can kind of withstand the big injury. But that's kind of where we're at, where you almost have to withstand the potential for an injury. And while that's not necessarily, it feels kind of awful that that's how teams have to think about this, that teams have to look at it and think, we want to build in terms of depth because we can't, or we may not be able to rely on our star player to stay healthy. And that's the case with the Celtics last year. And now they're dealing with no Jason Tatum. The Pacers are dealing with no Tyrese Halliburton, because when these injuries happen, and a lot of times they're freak injuries, which can happen at any point, but they're major injuries. So now it changes the complexion of not just your playoff push, but it also changes how you approach the next season coming up. And that's why, and I wanted to kind of get towards why I do think the Knicks are in a better spot moving forward, because a lot of this is why. A lot of this is why, and a lot of why I think that they are, in a better spot now. And I know they've had their issues and ups and downs this year, but I think they're in a much better spot this year with Mike Brown than they were in previous years. Mark your calendars. 107.7 The Bronx Excellent Egg Hunt is on its way. Join us on the Campus Mall on Tuesday, March 31st at 11 a.m. to experience the event. The Bronx won the best giveaway at the 2025 IBS Media Awards. Don't forget, there are 10,000 eggs, 20,000 pieces of candy, and a chance to win so many cool prizes, including our biggest and most iconic prize, a 3 or 4 night Royal Caribbean cruise for 2 to the Bahamas, provided by Josh Harry Travel. For more details, including a list of other activities and bites to eat, go to 1077thebronx.com/egg hunt. We'll be back with more from the Tom Hill Show after these underwriting announcements on the Princeton Review's 18th ranked best college radio station, 107.7 The Bronx.
There's just something about Rider University
that has allowed me to thrive as a student in and out of the classroom.
Succeed in my chosen career as one of 65,000 Rider alumni.
I can't quite put my finger on it.
Maybe it's the Rider faculty who have helped me to unlock my true potential.
Or the over 125 student clubs and organizations that allowed me to become the natural-born leader I really am.
Or the administrative staff who encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone and develop into a true individual.
Like most students and alumni, I believe in Rider because Rider believes in me.
Don't just take it from us. Take it from Nicole Casey.
I think from working with orientation, I've seen so many students start off here just like I did, really shy, and then just they find their niche or they find something that they can get involved in that interests them, and just seeing how they flourish into a whole new person. And I think I've done the same thing myself.
Hashtag I believe in Rider.
Hashtag I believe in Rider.
Hashtag I believe in Rider.
Because Rider University believes in me.
Go to your favorite social media platform to tell the world why you believe in Rider University.
Hey guys, it's me, Ellis Foreman, production director for 107.7 The Bronx, host of Wake Up Rider weekdays 8 to 10 a.m. and vocalizer-larologist.
Oh.
I'm here to tell you, yes you, that 107.7 The Bronx WRRC-FM has been ranked the 18th best college radio station in the country by the Princeton Review. This is the 3rd year we've been ranked as a top 20 college radio station in America by Rider students and our listeners around the country and the world. And we want to thank you for your continued support and promise that we will continue to give you the biggest hits and the best variety. Jeez, it sounds like I'm running for president. Wait a minute, I have an idea.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
Ever wonder where 107.7 The Bronx can take you? On Alumni in Action, Owen McCarron and Owen Nelson sit down with Rider graduates who've turned their college experience into something bigger. Leaders in media, content creators, industry changemakers. We talk about the moments at 107.7 The Bronx that shaped them, the risks they took in their careers, and what they learned back then that made them the media professionals they are today. These are honest, inspiring conversations with people who once spoke in the same mics you do today. From Cranberries to Kroner, Rider Rock to the commencement stage, there's a new episode the first Sunday of every month with encore episodes weekly at 8 a.m. Or watch the videos on our website at 1077thebronx.com/alumni in action. Tune in to hear how Rider alumni are making their mark with new episodes every Sunday at 8 a.m. One story at a time. This is Alumni in Action.
The invisible intruder, naturally occurring radon gas. This odorless and tasteless gas enters homes through cracks, gaps around pipes, sump pits, or even your well water, and is the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States. You could be at risk. Act now, don't wait. The New Jersey DEP's radon section has your back, with free resources and expert advice to keep your home radon-free. Visit radon.nj.gov for details on testing and radon mitigation solutions. Sponsored by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
Once upon a time, a narrator was compelled to introduce a one-of-a-kind pet health show specifically designed for you. Every Saturday at 10 a.m., catch up on Monday too, 107.7 The Bronx brings your pet matters into view. We have Dr. Tequiwa with plenty of pet tips to spare, made for pet owners just like you from Progressive Veterinary Care. Tune in to Your Pet Matters on Saturday at 10 when it airs. Dr. T and his team of experts are always ready to share, keeping your pets happy and healthy like we know you always do. Your Pet Matters on 107.7 The Bronx has got you. Your Pet Matters is underwritten by Progressive Veterinary Care, located at 390 County Road in Skillman, New Jersey.
107.7 The Bronx and 107.7 The Bronx Retro's excellent egg hunt is underwritten in part by Josh Harry Travel.
Turn travel dreams into unforgettable memories with Josh Harry Travel, offering tailored experiences for couple and family vacations, destination weddings, and honeymoons. Visit joshharrytravel.com for exclusive deals and personalized itineraries. Trust them to transform your getaway into the ultimate adventure. Book now for the journey of a lifetime. Your perfect vacation is just one click away at joshharrytravel.com.
Wake Up Rider and other programming on 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7 The Bronx Retro is underwritten by Miller Keystone Blood Center. It only takes a few minutes to help save a life, but those few minutes can help save the life of someone in need, maybe someone you know. Make your appointment today at Miller Keystone Blood Center, located at TCNJ's Campus Town. To donate blood, platelets, plasma, and more, call 800-BA-DONOR. That's 800-BA-DONOR. Go to giveapint.org or schedule an appointment through the MKBC donor app.
107.7 The Bronx has very exciting news. Our new video stream is live. Now you can listen to The Bronx on air, online, and on app, and watch your favorite student shows live on the Bronx YouTube channel and Facebook, including Bronx After Hours, Tri-State Sports Ramble, High Stakes, The Journey Across the Sports World, and Cliff Notes. Coming soon, Wake Up Rider on Monday, February 23rd. Keep it tuned into The Bronx to see how you can stream and watch your favorite student shows live now and in the future. Welcome back to the Tom Hill Show on your 2025 National Association of Broadcasters Marconi Radio Award nominated station, 107.7 The Bronx. Halfway point here on a Monday morning. It's cold, really cold. We got some snow last night. I didn't think that was going to be called for at all. Thought we were kind of done, but you never know. We're still in February. So I teased this prior to the underwriting announcements, and I brought it up. You know, we've been having this conversation all show long about the NBA and kind of the state of the NBA and how it's, you know, the last 7 or 8 years or so. I don't know the exact pinpoint time, but load management has been big. We've seen stars rest big games because they have to, because you just can't expect your star to play every single minute and not get hurt. That's just, it's inevitable. It's sports. It's a game where you're running back and forth for a lot of time and you're going to get hurt. It is what it is. But there's ways to combat that. And the way to combat that is load management. And that's why I think that, you know, maybe not specifically load management, but I think that Tom Thibodeau's style with the New York Knicks, it worked for the Knicks teams that he had, but this Knicks team that he had last year, and it's a very similar team to the Knicks this year, you just can't rely on these guys to play 40-plus minutes night in and night out. It's just not sustainable. And we've seen it a couple of years ago where they got hurt, and they were outgassed and outmanned, and they just could not really do anything. And we've seen it now for the last couple of years play out. And, you know, hey, they had opportunities against the Pacers a year ago, and they had opportunities even in the year prior. But I think Mike Brown being the head coach of the Knicks, it's going to help them in April shape up to where they want to be, which is in a spot where they're playing the top teams in the East, like a Pistons. So, you know, you can win. And, you know, I think for years, Knicks fans got spoiled. I don't want to say spoiled, but when it came to Tom Thibodeau in that 2020-2021 season, they were undermanned. They didn't have the best talent. Like, they were starting Elfrid Payton in playoff games. So obviously from a talent perspective, they were not at par or near the top teams in the East and really the top teams in the league. And, Julius Randle burst onto scene, but that was a Knick team that their bread and butter was, we're going to play tough. We're going to win regular season games. We're going to play hard. Tibbs is going to get the most out of these guys. He's going to max out their minutes or at least get near the max out point. But at the end of the day, they were going to be limited because at the end of the day in this sport, you need to have talent. You can't just will your way to a championship because if you can't shoot, if you can't score, if you can't go on the 15-5 run or the 20-6 run, you're not going to win games. You're not going to win games against teams that have depth and scorers and centers and bigs, and it's just going to be too tough. So that's what the Knicks ran into, and they lost to the Hawks. They ran into the wall. They lost to them in 5. That Hawk team eventually did go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but you take a look at what the Knicks were able to do under Tom Thibodeau's tutelage, and a lot of it just was the fact that he got the most out of players who maybe weren't the best talent-wise. And that works in the regular season when there are some nights where you're playing a team that's probably better than you, but they're resting a Kevin Durant, or they're resting a Jason Tatum, or they're resting a Luka Doncic. Like, that may happen. That may happen where, on a rogue Tuesday night in January, you may beat a team on the road that you're not supposed to. But over the course of time, and eventually what we've seen is that once April gets going, it's going to be really hard to sustain that. It's going to be really hard to try to get that to be something that can occur in the month of April, because you're going to need your guys to be healthy. And if your guys are not healthy, especially guys who kind of do a lot on both sides of the ball and kind of do a lot, like Josh Hart does a lot defensively, OG Anunoby does a lot defensively, and they're big because they can kind of mask Jalen Brunson's inefficacies on defense. And, Brunson and Cat on the floor together doesn't really spell for the best defensive team in the world. And I think Mike Brown knows that, and I think the previous regime also knew that as well. But having Hart, having Anunoby, having Mikal Bridges, if they're all healthy and you can kind of pick and choose and find spots throughout the course of the regular season to give them maybe a quarter or give them 6 minutes or give them 10 on the bench, that's going to move mountains, because this is a team that, in terms of talent, I think it's neck and neck with them in Detroit. I do think Detroit's a better team. I think Detroit has more depth. I trust Detroit a little bit more. I think Cade Cunningham as a scorer, right up there with Jalen Brunson. I think him and Brunson are similar players, but I think the biggest differentiator between the Pistons and the Knicks, I trust Jalen Duren a lot more than I trust Karl Anthony Towns. And we've seen the Knicks have issues with Karl Anthony Towns, and I think a lot of it is Mike Brown. But, they were kind of kicking the tires with maybe moving him at the deadline. They didn't. I think Karl Anthony Towns is going to be the X factor for this playoff run, because again, it's the NBA, and I've said this earlier on the show, and anyone can say this and know this too. Injuries are bound to happen at some point and could happen at any point. So I can talk all day about how it's better that Mike Brown doesn't play these guys into the ground every single night against teams like Charlotte Charlotte's good, but teams like the Nets or teams like the Pacers or the Wizards. So you take a look at how he's able to do that, and it's better for this team. But again, injuries could happen. And you could be looking at a situation like the previous couple of playoff runs where maybe you're not at your best to try to make a run. But I think the Knicks are. I think the Knicks are. But the thing that they have to do, and this is why this is going to be big, right out of the break, and I'm glad that this is the way the schedule broke. February 19th, so right out of the break, on Thursday night, the Knicks host the Pistons. Pistons 40-13, the Knicks 35-20. Previous time that the Knicks played the Pistons, you got to go back to February 6th, so not too long ago, right before the break, Pistons hammered them 118-80. The Knicks shot 8 of 33 from three, 24%. Brunson played 31 minutes. He had 12 points. He only shot 4 of 20. Mikal Bridges had 19, but this is a team that, they got smoked early on, and Detroit scored over 60 in the first half and then just eventually salted away the game. And the interesting part, too, is, it'd be one thing if Cunningham scored 35, but Cunningham 11, Stewart 15, Reed 12, Jenkins 18, Tobias Harris had 15. He shot well from the field. So it was kind of a little bit of 4 or 5 different guys that killed the Knicks in that game. It wasn't just one guy. And I don't want to say that the individual matchups necessarily matter too much, because the Knicks didn't do too well with the Celtics last year in the regular season, but they won the playoff series over them. And I understand, there's the whole Jason Tatum, the injury, and also with the way they shot, the Celtics shot from downtown, it just wasn't high efficiency. I believe they shot 25% in game 1 and game 2. And that's what you're going to get. You're going to get sometimes in the NBA when you have these teams, and a lot of teams now do this because this is the way that the league has gone in the last 5 years. If you shoot well from 3, you can kill a team by 20 plus. But if you don't, you're going to consistently keep a team in it. And that's kind of been the case with some of these teams that don't perform well in the playoffs because they don't have a plan B, because there really isn't a plan B. Because if you're a team that shoots right around 37, 38% from 3, or even 35, 34%, you're just going to keep on hoisting, because you got to think about it from a perspective of if you shoot 25 and 9 of them go in, and you shoot another 25 and 6 or 7 of them go in, you're shooting at about a low 30s%. But if you hit only 5 of your first 20 or 7 of your first 25, and then your next 25 you hit 3 or 4, now you're under 25%. You're keeping teams in it by missing 20 plus threes or 25 plus threes because it's a missed shot. So that's kind of the way the game is going. And I'm sure that the Celtics and Joe Mazzulla probably figured we just didn't hit shots. And that's going to happen when you're a team that relies on hitting shots. And I think the Knicks, did they play harder than the Celtics? I don't necessarily know. I'm not there on the court, so I don't know if, we can really make that judgment. But I think sometimes you just wait for a team to keep on missing shots and you try to see if you can keep on impacting that in a way. But I think the bigger storyline, and the storyline that I kind of have drove home here, is the main reason why the Knicks won that series was due to the injury to Jason Tatum. I think that spoke more volume. I think that did more to shift the way that series played out than the shooting was of the Celtics in the first couple of games. Because if you look at game 3, the Celtics shot really well and beat the Knicks, and were beating the Knicks in game 4. And beat them in game 5. So you look at how that series could have gone had Tatum stayed healthy. And again, it's a big if, because we're not going back in time. Whatever happened, happened. But you had to figure that the Celtics, had they split in Boston, they would have went up 2-1. And if the Knicks win game 4, well, the Celtics may have won game 5, and then they would have went back to Boston. So there's a lot at play. In terms of looking at the ifs and the hypotheticals. But I think back to the Knicks' perspective and back to what they need to do to kind of make sure this regular season the rest of the way is a win, is if Mike Brown finds his pockets of time where he can give guys rest and find where there's some sort of role for Karl Anthony Towns to be a factor, because we know the defense is not going to be anywhere near the top centers. But where can he be a factor? It's shooting. And also, how do you look against the Pistons coming right out of the break? How are you going to look at home against the team that you're probably going to look up at come April, and probably going to face as well in the Eastern Conference Finals, assuming everything breaks out the way we maybe think? But, I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious to see how everything breaks out, and I'm kind of curious to see how everything shapes up for this Knicks team, because I do definitely think that having a coach that is aware of the fact that the regular season, the best teams tend to use the regular season, I don't want to say tune-up, but they use it to their advantage in ways where we don't need 65 wins, 68 wins, 70 wins. We just need to get in and be the healthiest that we can be. And I think if they're the healthiest that they can be, I think they can go band for band with the Pistons in a 6 or 7 game series. I think that's a series that's going to go deep, because I think the Knicks can shoot. They have great defense at the wings. I think they can maybe take away Cunningham. They just beat the Pistons last year in the first round. This is a better Piston team. It's a deep team. So it definitely could go either way. And I think the Pistons right now, as we sit here on February 16th, are better. But I don't think they're going to be better in April. The Celtics were better last year at this time than the Knicks. And look how that turned out. Look how that played out. So, again, this is all just projection. We're still very far away from April. And we're very far away from seeing how things shape out in the playoffs, because at the end of the day, we don't know. Because usually the best teams don't always win. It's usually the healthiest teams. That's why the league, and that's why what we said earlier on this show is, are there ways to make it to where each team can be healthy? Not necessarily. I mean, you can do what you can do as an organization with load management, resting guys on the second day of a back-to-back. But at the end of the day, injuries are still going to happen. Fatigue is still going to kick in. There might just be games where you're off shooting. It's going to happen. It's just part of the season. It's part of the landscape. And I think that the Knicks maybe can take advantage of this season if they play well against the Pistons. I'm going to be curious to see how they play on Thursday night at home. If they're flat and lose by 20 plus, then you start kind of having some doubts, and rightfully having doubts about how they may shape up against Detroit. But if you feel that they can play well, if that's even a tight game, even if they lose, if it is 122 to 118, or if it goes into overtime and you lose, or if you shoot well from the field but they just shoot better from the field, you'll take a loss like that. I mean, I know you're never really thinking about silver linings, but that's something that's easier to stomach than if you come out and just look absolutely flat, and all of a sudden at halftime you're down by 18 and there's just nothing you can do. Because this is a Knicks team. The addition of Jose Alvarado, I think, makes them tougher. I think it makes them better defensively. And we saw it the other night in Philadelphia where the Knicks smoked the 76ers. And there was a stretch of time earlier this season, kind of in early January, I would say, even mid-January, where everyone thought the sky was falling down with this team, that Mike Brown was nowhere near as good as Tibbs. And, Tibbs maximized his guys, and we detailed, he also maximized their minutes on the court. But I just think that the Knicks, again, ebbs and flows of a season, they're going to happen. You're going to have nights where you look off, or maybe someone doesn't play. And I kind of think that the thing you have to realize with evaluating this team, in this current perspective of the NBA, is that you can't harp on every single minute of a regular season game. You just can't do it. You can't harp on day 2 of a back-to-back. You can't harp on a game where you're losing by 25 because you didn't start Jalen Brunson or you didn't play a certain guy in the second half of a game that maybe you could have won because you might have only been down 15 or 20 at half, but you decided to kind of foot off the gas and just kind of punt that game, for a lack of a better term. And I think that that's going to bode well for April, because less mileage on these guys' legs should mean that they're ready for April and maybe less likely to get hurt. You know, we say a lot of times that these injuries, even though they're freak, a lot of times they're fatigue. It's a fatigue, the sport where there's a lot of fatigue, there's a lot of running. So maybe there's a chance that that could help the Knicks in April. And again, the thing that I want to stress here, and the thing that I think we all need to stress, and the thing we all need to still be aware of, is that injuries are bound to happen. They can happen at any point. They can happen to any player. And even though we don't like it, it's unfortunate, but that tends to shape the playoffs. That tends to shape the way a lot of these series go. And it kind of sometimes will alter who we think is going to win, because it's not always the best teams. A lot of times it's the healthiest. 1077 The Bronx is switching things up this year. Instead of Dessert Wars, prepare yourself for a brand new contest, Build the Ultimate Bronkwich. This will be your chance to have your very own creation be the signature sandwich of Rider University and win a Royal Caribbean cruise to the Bahamas, courtesy of Josh Harry Travel. Stay tuned to The Bronx for the big announcement on February 16th and watch your Rider email for more information on this exciting new competition. We'll be back with more from the Tom Hill Show after these underwriting announcements on your 8-time 2026 IBS Media Award-nominated station, 1077 The Bronx.
Do you wake up and feel like your mornings are just missing something? Certainly nothing worse than your coffee just not hitting the same. But there has to be something, right?
Yeah, baby! Yeah, there is! Weekdays, you won't even need coffee. You'll be running on life's purest energy, all thanks to the crew at Wake Up Rider. Your favorite IBS award-winning college morning show is on every Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m.
Not convinced? Let me help you out. You like music? Obviously you do. Bam! You like games? Of course you do. You like fun people? Duh. If you answered no to any of these questions, what are you, the fun police? And they have plenty more to offer.
Wake Up Rider brings you season 9 of their usual antics, and what better way to start your morning than joining them? Unfortunately, winter break has come to an end, but if you need to keep yourself occupied, go to 1077thebronx.com and listen to all of their former episodes to give your days that pizzazz.
And I'll cut you a deal. I won't even judge you if it's not morning when you listen.
Just make sure you're listening to Wake Up Rider on 1077 The Bronx the second that clock strikes 8 a.m. on weekdays.
So set your alarm.
This is your Rider News Roundup. This is your Rider News Roundup.
And this is your Rider News Roundup.
On Saturdays at 11 a.m., you can get the views behind the news from the pages of the Rider News. The Rider News and 1077 The Bronx present the Rider News Roundup, the podcast. Hosted by Caroline Havland, Grace Bertrand, and Ben Chenault, the Rider News Roundup, the podcast, is your weekly window into the Rider world. New episodes of the Rider News Roundup, the podcast, debut the second and fourth Saturday of every month at 11 a.m. Know what's going on and how everything at Rider affects you. Be on the lookout for new episodes twice a month. Make sure to get your news from the Rider News online at theridernews.com. And tune into the Rider News Roundup, the podcast, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on 1077 The Bronx. Go to 1077thebronx.com/Rider News Roundup to learn more information.
1077 The Bronx campus traditions are underwritten in part by Rider Dining Services. Rider Dining is taking it up a notch in 2026. Their New Year's resolution is all new menu items at your favorite campus dining spots. Muller's Pub is featuring new bites for the new year: chicken and veggie pot stickers, spicy jalapeno poppers, mac and cheese, cauliflower, and something bigger. Now available at Muller's Pub, snack platters. This shareable appetizer features wings, mozzarella sticks, pretzel bites, french fries, and 2 cans of soda, all for $20. But wait, Rider Dining has something even more delicious. You asked for it and now they're serving breakfast for you. Begin every morning with the market's new hot breakfast bagel sandwiches, egg, bacon, and cheese, sausage, egg, and cheese, or go simple with egg and cheese. Even better, warm up their new vegetarian miso and chicken shoyu ramen bowls, served hot at the food lockers. Find more delicious events through the Dine on Campus app, or by following Rider Dining on Instagram at Rider_eats.
There is so much happening this spring at 1077 The Bronx, which means there's a lot of behind-the-scenes content to be seen. Funny Reels station highlights, sponsor trips, and exclusive moments are just a few of the reasons why you should engage with The Bronc on social media. Keep up with The Bronc by following us on Instagram or Threads at 1077 The Bronc, on TikTok at 1077 The Bronc WRRC, even on Facebook at 1077 The Bronc to see what we're up to on and off the air. Welcome back to the Tom Hill Show and your 5-time, NAB Marconi Award nominee for College Radio Station of the Year. That is 1077 The Bronc. Hour number one, well, the only hour. Tom Hill Show on a Monday morning, and I wanted to squeeze in some baseball news just to kind of get it in. We're still a month away from really getting into the swing of things and being right around the corner from it. And obviously the regular season starts that final Wednesday with the Yankees and Giants in San Francisco. But I wanted to kind of just give my 2 cents on the injuries that are starting to pile up, and it's the hamate bone injury. Francisco Lindor, Corbin Carroll, and Jackson Holliday have all dealt now with this hamate bone, which is the bone right below the pinky, if I'm not mistaken. And it really saps your power because they have the surgery, so it's about a 6-week layoff, and then they have to come back and get back into baseball shape. So my concern with the Mets now lies in the hands of Bo Bichette, because you sign Bo Bichette, you think he's going to play third, and then Lindor has this hamate bone issue, so in all likelihood he will miss opening day. I don't know exactly when he'll be back. My guess is probably like game 10, game 15, something around that range. But the one thing that I think is the bigger story here, he's pivotal for the Mets, both defensively and even with his bat too. He's right around like 760, 770 to 800 OPS, 25 to 32 homers. Like, him and Soto are huge in that lineup because outside of them and Bichette, you don't truly know what you're getting from the rest of that lineup. Luis Robert, up and down at the plate. Marcus Semien, throughout his career, up and down at the plate. Jorge Polanco was great last year for Seattle. You don't know what he's going to do this year. So there are a lot of issues that could present themselves offensively with the Mets if this is an extended timeout for Lindor. If he's out for 20-plus games, which I doubt, but it could happen, how are the Mets going to look? And also, how are they going to look defensively? Because now Bichette has to play short, or I would figure he's playing short in the time that Lindor is still hurt. And he's not a really good defensive shortstop. That was his position in Toronto, but you sign him to play third, and now he's learning third, and then you're going to, put him back at short. And I feel like that can do a lot mentally, and that could affect him at the plate. And then another thing to address is the hamate bone. That's big for players because it saps their power. So, we've seen, this is the injury that Andrew Benintendi had with the Yankees a couple of years ago. And down the stretch, he wasn't anywhere near the hitter that he was for them in that latter half of the season. So this could be tough. This could be tough. This could be something that can linger all year long, and we could look at definitely a hindered and a decreased version offensively of Francisco Lindor. And if that saps his power and he's not the hitter that we've been accustomed to seeing, and a lot of the heavy lifting is going to fall on Juan Soto, and maybe the way the opposition approaches is just walk Juan Soto and deal with the other hitters. So I think this Mets team it's unique because they're different, and I think they've added a lot of pieces that could pop and all click together with Bichette and Semien and Luis Robert. So I definitely think that, Carson Benji also is going to be a name that's going to kind of move some heads. And you got to figure I don't know if he's going to be on the opening day roster. I don't know if he's going to get called up soon, but you got to figure he's going to be a factor for the Mets in 2026. And obviously they have a lot of young pitchers, so they're good on that front, or what we think, assuming they stay healthy. But with the Mets, I'm curious to see how they look offensively because you are relying on a lot of new players and players to have bounce-back seasons, or maybe not necessarily bounce-back offensive seasons, but you're relying on players who have a track record of being up and down and having a lot of ebbs and flows to their production from a season-to-season standpoint. And if you don't get a lot offensively from Francisco Lindor, or at least early in the season, who outside of Juan Soto and maybe Bo Bichette can generate that? Like, I'm just trying to find some spots in this lineup because no Pete Alonso, he's now with Baltimore, so that's just going to be something that I'm going to keep my eye on as we get closer to opening day. And I wanted to switch over here these last couple of minutes and deliver some Yankee news. The Yankees right now have reported a couple days ago, I believe, that Cam Schlittler is dealing with back inflammation. I don't necessarily know if I would panic hearing that, but it's not great to hear because we're also hearing stuff with Carlos Rodon. And you have Ryan Weathers, you have Luis Gil, you have Will Warren, but you do need your big guys to be there. And Schlittler is somebody that they have a lot of high hopes for as a potential 2. I think that could be his ceiling with Cole out and then a 3 when Cole gets inserted back in. But you're also relying on a 34-year-old Garrett Cole coming back off of Tommy John surgery. I think he's going to be productive, but when will we see him and what will we see from him when he gets back? So there are a lot of moving parts even with the Yankees because you have to figure that you're going to get an injury at some other point. It's just inevitable with pitchers. They get hurt all the time. So it's just, did your additions this season do enough to kind of at least make that less of an issue than it could be? Did the addition of Ryan Weathers help? I mean, I like Ryan Weathers' stuff. Saw a video the other day. He's already touching 98. That's good. And him working with Matt Blake could be really good. But the thing that I'm curious about is that going to be good in terms of him as a starter? Is that going to be good in terms of him maybe profiling more as a reliever? I think Luis Gil is another name that profiles a little bit more as a reliever. So there are definitely things to kind of keep our eyes on in regards to both teams. And I think I'd be a little bit more concerned with the Mets, but I do think that the Mets pitching could maybe carry the load at least for that first month. But I'm just curious to see if Francisco Lindor is a non-factor offensively this season, who else not named Juan Soto and Bo Bichette can carry that offensive load? And then you also have to factor in, you're also putting a lot of stock into Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong, who are young pitchers. And Jonah Tong he had good underlying numbers, but he did not have a good stretch down the stretch with the Mets. So there are a lot of questions still with the Mets in terms of their pitching, even though adding Freddie Peralta is huge. We also have to be honest about Freddie Peralta. This is a guy that had a mid-3s ERA for the last 2 years, and then last year he blew up and had an ERA sub-3. But this is not a workhorse who's going to give you 200 innings consistently. And, it's going to be interesting to see how that season shapes out. And will that trade really look good for the Mets in the coming years? I'm curious to see how all of that will play out. But again, we're still really far out from the start of baseball. I think the World Baseball Classic does start in early March. So we have the Olympics right now. We have the World Baseball Classic coming up. And then the NBA does luckily resume this week. So we do have a lot on tap coming up. But it is kind of a weird spot right now in the sports world. And the NFL draft obviously not until the end of April. So we still have a lot to kind of get into on that front as well, but that'll be in the coming weeks. But that I just wanted to kind of get that out there more from the Met perspective, because the hamate bone, that's tough. You lose your power, and that's just, it's tough to recover from that. It's a 6-week recovery, and then you have to kind of get back into baseball speed and do the whole thing. But thank you for listening to the Tom Hill Show. We'll be back next Monday from 10 to 11. Stay tuned for more of the biggest hits and best variety on the Princeton Review's 18th ranked best college radio station. 8-time 2026 nominee of an IBS Media Award and 5-time National Association of Broadcasters Marconi Radio Award nominee for College Radio Station of the Year. 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com.
1077 The Bronx, WRRC-FM, Lawrenceville, New Jersey. If there's one thing synonymous with the spring semester at Rider University, it's 1077 The Bronx Excellent Egg Hunt. Grab your egg hunt bag, lace up your shoes, and come on over to campus on Thursday